Where there are many people who are given victim status, although there's obviously a hierarchy of victims. Obviously, if you're gay or black or whatever, there's certain groups that are featured as victims. They're more prominent in the media. Their suffering, their exposure to bigotry are going to be much more emphasized. But let's say even if you're a woman looking for a job, you know that there are laws which prevent discrimination against you, which are being supported by both major political parties and by candidates for public office. If women are depicted as a victim group, this gives you a leg up in terms of finding a position. So there are lots of groups that benefit in one way or another by the emphasis on victimhood and the teaching of political correctness. Finally, I would say that this diversity or multicultural ideology with its attendant hierarchy of victims and victimizers is the post-Christian religion of the West. It is taught everywhere, inside and outside of churches. And to the extent that people do have religious moral beliefs, they reflect political correctness. This is my experience. Now, it's not that everybody is running to give their houses to minorities or to make sure that their white children marry blacks or Hispanics in order to show how liberal they are. But to the extent that people are seen as moral, decent, nice, and sensitive, they are supposed to believe in multiculturalism. And supposed to recognize that there are certain historic victims, and the others are supposed to make amends to them through social policy, economic redistribution. I think the Democratic Party is sitting on a volcano, by the way. I think that the victim groups that line up with the Democrats are making competing demands, blacks and Hispanics, Jews and blacks, and so forth. I don't think these are compatible groups in the end. So I see tensions within the political system that are going to arise out of competing claimants for favors and victim status. That I see as one source of conflict that is going to continue and probably become more acute in the future. Another thing is I think more and more people are becoming aware of the fact that they're being manipulated, even if they do allow themselves to be manipulated. I think at some level there is popular unhappiness with this.
You mentioned a level of discontent. Mm-hmm. Is there a point of no return on this? Is there a point where we've gone too far?
Well, I don't know whether we've gone too far, but looking at European countries, they have gone too far. I see no way that Germany is ever going to return. despite years of, well, perhaps because of years of political indoctrination in which Germans told that they're subhuman, they've started every war in human history, and they could only atone for this by handing over their country to Muslim immigrants and by allowing themselves to be merged with the European Union. Their country has ceased to be a nation state. I don't know what it is. It's simply waiting. It's a collection of yuppies and welfare state beneficiaries waiting to be taken over by the EU, producing very few offspring, and being colonized by Muslims. What they basically have done is turn their cities into centers of civil strife because of the presence of large Muslim populations that they cannot integrate into their societies. There are many groups that benefit, but they benefit differentially. That is to say, you know, blacks certainly benefit, or certain blacks. Not all blacks benefit, certain blacks benefit. Not the black underclass. They get nothing out of this. But the black middle class women who are given privileged access to positions, black women in particular. Some Hispanics. But in a more general way, certain groups derive, but for instance, Hispanics derive benefit, A, because people cannot come out against immigration because they feel that this would, you know, this would brand them as racist or bigots. So all the Republican candidates are now running saying we want legal immigration, we want more immigration. So I think the Hispanics do benefit in terms of the general immigration situation from this. Other groups get a kind of emotional benefit, Jews, for instance, because they're treated as victims of white Christian civilization. And they're allowed to say things about other people that other people can't say about Jews. So, I mean, the other ones can always hope that they will rise in the victim hierarchy. But I would say that's probably the black middle-class women are right now the major beneficiaries of the spoils system. Of course, part of what drives the system is the sense of sin. The white male Western Christian is made to feel guilty. It's almost, as I said, it's a kind of replacement Christian theology. You're made to feel, and no matter how you search your heart, no matter what good you do, you remain depraved. You're in a state of original sin. I mean, I hear this all the time. But I think what this psychology leads to is a willingness to do even more, you know, to have something similar to what my colleague Trifkovich described as, you know, is going on in Europe, or Derek Turner said is going on in England, that we're going to have to push people around even more in order to root out the remnants of racism.